Okay.
Hey, Frankie.
Hey, how are you, Tommy? So I just wanted to, I have to refresh every time I go into a new room. It doesn't let me join the stage automatically. It's just a technical hiccup. But thank you so much for being here, sharing your time, expertise. I think people are really looking forward to it. I also just, again, want to give a shout out to all of the sponsors who are here, who made this event possible. We're coming down the stretch to our final talks. So very thankful for the Equilibrium DeFi team, the Talisman team, of course, all of our partners, Parity, Lucky Friday, we all kind of chipped in to make this event happen today. I think it's been a great success. And I also want to give a very special shout out, just a moment of gratitude on a personal level to Tommy. He is really a big part of why I'm so deep in this ecosystem now. And I really wouldn't be here. He invited me into Chaos DAO and I got to meet all these wonderful people. And I feel like Polkadot is really my home in the blockchain space. And so I really wouldn't be here without you, my friend. And I can never thank you enough. So I really appreciate you and all that you do for everybody in our ecosystem and beyond. I'll give you the floor.
I can say I'm very happy to have you on every show where you are on attempts at governance, and seeing you hosting today is very nice. And also thanks a lot to the organizers of the event. If you see what's going on backstage, that's very interesting. Okay, so let's go. The title of the event is Polkadot to the Rescue, Decentralizing Ethereum Rollups. But I wasn't very happy with the title, so I made it a little bit better. And what I actually want to talk about is that the future of crypto is a big block of wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey space. And I'm going to explain in a second what this means. So most of us, when we think about blockchain ecosystems, most of the time is we have this picture in mind. So we have several base layers like Bitcoin, Polkadot, Ethereum, Cosmos, Avalanche, Cardano, Solana, and so on. And then we think of layer 2s on top of it. Or in the case of Polkadot, we think about the layer 0 and then layer 1s. But usually there is some form of base layer and then there are layers on top. And in the case of Ethereum, even we have layer 3s. And in theory, we have layers building on top of that. And then we have bridges where we don't know where to put them. They're not underneath, they're not on top, maybe they're on the side or in between. So I put them on the bottom here. But this is how we usually tend to think about blockchain. And I'm inviting you today to consider that everything you think you know about layers is wrong. So why is that? I'm going to give you 10 examples, and I'm starting with Mangata. So Mangata, where I'm leading growth, we built a DEX, and it's a DEX that has a lot of great features that is improving capital efficiency, fairness, creating a great cost structure for traders with predictable 0.3%, no gas, no MEV. So I think it's the most predictable price structure of any DEX. And we built a lot of features there: algorithmic buy and burn, MEV prevention, time incentivization, liquidity gotchas, proof of liquidity. So now Mangata is taking the next strategic step. So Mangata 2.0 is coming. Mangata is becoming an interchain DEX. And this is our first example, because usually you have layer 1 on the bottom and then you have a layer 2 on top. Now, what's happening here? Mangata is now becoming an interchain DEX. And so it is sitting on top of Polkadot as a parachain, but it will also be sitting on top of Ethereum. And when we explain this to people, it usually blows their mind. What does this actually mean? So we take a very tangible example. We say, okay, imagine you have DOT on Polkadot and you have ETH on Ethereum. Imagine you can do a native swap of the tokens without bridging them between the ecosystems. So it's not yet like you're bridging ETH into Polkadot or DOT into Ethereum. Instead, they are moving to Mangata. Traditionally, you call this bridging still, but they are not crossing ecosystem boundaries. So when you swap your ETH against DOT, you have now DOT in the Polkadot ecosystem. Or when you're swapping DOT to ETH, you have ETH in the Ethereum ecosystem. And you can read up on how we're going to do this on our blog at mangata.finance. But basically, this opens up a few questions now. So Mangata is a parachain in Polkadot, and Mangata is a CK rollup layer 2 on Ethereum. So what does it make Mangata? Because usually in Polkadot, we speak about layer 0 being Polkadot, and then everything on top is a layer 1. But if Mangata is a layer 1 on Polkadot and a layer 2 on Ethereum, like how does this work? And so this is just one example that inspired us to look deeper into this and find more examples of where this traditional structure of the layerization is actually breaking down. So this is Mangata in the future. We're going to see it being deployed on many different chains. But okay, let's look at other examples. Interlay. Interlay is a parachain and is actually connecting to Bitcoin. So this is one of their own graphics. So it says connecting, but isn't Interlay, could it not also be considered a layer 2? So this is another interesting question. And then we're having Davinia, which is also a parachain on top of Polkadot, but is at the same time, it's a bridge network. So we are seeing how bridges are sort of creating distress in our model where we say, yeah, it sits between the chains, but it could also sit on top of a chain. Then sometimes you have light clients where you sort of have two bridgeheads. And another thing is composable, where they're actually working with IBC. So it's sort of a message relaying protocol, but it doesn't have a network in between. So it's sort of like the logic that sits on top and connects everything. And so this is one kind of how our traditional view breaks apart. I'm giving you now in a few other dimensions. So let's look at Tansi Network, which was recently announced. And it's basically a parachain that allows other chains, container chains, to be deployed to Polkadot. But they are also regular parachains. But what Tansi is doing, it is providing infrastructure. So it is providing validators, RPC nodes, access to explorers or indexers or other tools. So sort of some part is being outsourced to Tansi Network. So a container chain is not sitting on top of Tansi, but it's sitting next to it, but it actually uses the service. So it's all of these traditional lines are blurring if you try to maintain this traditional view of there is one layer and then there's something on top. It's no longer like this. So this is the Cosmos interchain scheduler. It's a proposal of the Cosmos 2.0 white paper. It was hotly debated in the Cosmos community, but basically this is a block space market. And the idea is that you have different chains and you want to acquire block space on several chains at the same time so that you can schedule the execution of blocks at your will. Like basically say, first I want this to execute on this chain and then this on this and another chain. It sort of was playing into this game of the MEV searches and basically saying, okay, now that we have an interchain world, we need an interchain scheduling to allow MEV. So this is also an application that is sitting between blockchains, providing a service, maybe with the Cosmos Hub. But we see how these different services like data availability, execution, settlement, consensus, block space allocation are being torn apart and being allocated to different parts of the ecosystem. Starkware. I recently had a call with them. We had a Mangata Monday community call with Louis from Starkware. And he dropped this idea into my head of their building technology where they could say, you can run a layer 2, but if it gets too expensive to run a layer 2, you could sort of pull it out there and drop it in as a layer 3 that sits on another layer 2, or basically move up and down or to other layers. So if you had flexible enough, a modular enough infrastructure, you could actually remove a layer 2 somewhere and make it a layer 3. I guess there is like a lot of complexity involved and it's questionable if we are really going that far, but even making this thinkable tears down more of the structures. And then there's Wormhole, which basically is this guardian network of 19 trusted nodes sitting between chains. But now they've decided that they are actually going to build the Guardian network as a chain in the Cosmos ecosystem. So suddenly you have bridges also becoming chains to basically create validity proofs or however they're working, and put this logic into chains also. And I think I have 2 more examples for you, and then I'm coming to the end. This is Celestial, and Celestial is basically advertising modular blockchains. So you're taking out execution and putting it somewhere, and then data availability and putting it somewhere. And then the last example, and this is sort of what really blew my mind, is Eigenlayer. It's a very interesting project on Ethereum, which basically allows you to restake ETH. So you're staking ETH, and you can restake the same ETH within Eigenlayer, and it allows the stake to extend the consensus of what is possible in Ethereum and allow new applications. So it's not a parachain, it's not a dedicated chain. You're using real ETH to secure the applications, but they can do stuff that they couldn't have done on Ethereum alone. And this is really incredible. So more and more permissionlessness is added with all the stuff that we're doing, where we are breaking different functions of blockchain apart and putting them where they can execute best. And this fits very well with our block space thesis. So block space is generated by different chains in a network, in different networks, and different networks can do specific things best. And so different chains in the ecosystem are now optimizing for those use cases. And all of a sudden, you have lines everywhere. It's no longer the layerization. At some point, it stops making sense. And then Vitalik comes in and it drops the bomb where he basically says, I think there is a multi-chain world, but there is no cross-chain world. Transferring large amounts of value between ecosystems is not going to happen because it's just too plain dangerous. I'm abbreviating here. And you're sitting here and trying to compute. How can I even make, I mean, I just got used to blockchain, and then there are different layers now, and then they are connecting, and then they have tens of different kinds of proofs and decay and optimistic and whatever. How do I make sense out of all of this? So calm down, breathe. And then I'm reminded of Doctor Who, from this famous British sci-fi series, who said, people assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect. But actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, tiny, whiny stuff. And what it leads us to conclude is that it's not so much about layers, but it's about networks. And if you start to view all of those blockchain networks, of course, you can keep your view of having the layers, because a lot of times it makes sense to think about layers. But if for some reason you're too overwhelmed because it stops making any more sense, switch your perspective and look at it like it is just a connection of networks. And of course, there is Polkadot, and Mangata sits as a parachain on top of Polkadot, but it also sits as a CK rollup layer 2 on Ethereum. And then you have networks like Wormhole, who are becoming a chain, but at the same time, they're connecting different chains and transmitting truth between chains. So I think taking this network-centric approach removes a lot of stress from your life, makes it easier to understand that things will become wibbly-wobbly in the future just because we're so creative people. If people stop being married to their bags, they can appreciate all the technology that we're building, no matter from which ecosystem it is coming. And then we can enjoy much more all the awesome stuff that everyone in the ecosystem is creating. So what is the role of Polkadot in this whole story? It's a mediator, it's an innovator, it's an early builder, an early adopter who can provide and make possible all of the stuff and connect it in a meaningful way. That's why so many of us are choosing Polkadot because it enables us to build this internet of value, this internet of blockchains, this interoperability network, and then of course connect to other ecosystems. So Polkadot is on the leading edge of innovation, and then it allows Mangata and many others to build things like decentralized sequences on Ethereum. So this is what we usually like to say, it's our chain, our rules, and having many chains allows us to build many different rule sets with many different options. That's it from my side. I would be happy if you follow us on Twitter. It's @MangataFinance, and I'm Alice and Bob. And I didn't check the time, so I don't know how long it took. Thank you. Oh God, I'm not hearing you.
Where did you go?
Hey, thank you.
Okay, hang on a second. I'm bringing it back down. So we did have a couple questions. Thank you so much. That was really enlightening. And I really, as someone who is just personally a big believer in interoperability and that we're going to come to a future where all of these things are going to get connected in some way. That was a really great presentation. I found it quite fascinating. We did have two questions. You probably know both of these people who are asking them. Limo is wondering how far into development is the ETH ZK tech of Mangata? He finds it's interesting stuff.
Yes, it's in a research phase right now. So we have 3 of our core team members have been fully allocated to the task. And at the moment, so we have an outline of what we want to build. And at the moment, we are evaluating technologies. So we have been looking into Starkware and into 2 other technologies. I missed the 2 demos in the last week, so I'm very sorry that I cannot report on the other ones. But they're basically comparing technologies now and making a decision on which technology is best to implement, because there is a lot of the stuff already built and we do not need to reinvent the wheel. So basically in the research phase, all of the other team is finalizing the Polkadot launch, right? So there will be the Polkadot launch first. We are live on Kusama. All of the features that you previously saw, except the Ethereum stuff, is done 100%. So we're going into the Polkadot launch now, and Ethereum will follow that.
Nice, awesome. And then next question comes from Beef. When are you going to focus on UI UX so people can actually use Mangata?
Yeah, we get that. We are actually since March or February, we are building a new version of the UI. So there is a sort of a closed beta coming where we are giving Mangata users access to the new UI, which is sort of completely new architecture built on the idea of micro apps. So basically have a lot of apps that are accessible. Will be coming out. I don't want to make it too. I have a feeling it should be out in the next months because they've been building and the core thing is done. But this will be a closed beta because the main application that you see right now, it is usable in my opinion. I'm using it almost every day. Could be better, of course, but we're also providing a lot of guides if you have like technical questions. But the main app is usable, and then there will be a beta access for the upcoming frontend.
Okay, awesome. Looking forward to it very much. Appreciate you being here as always. Thank you again for a wonderful talk, and for everybody in the audience, we will see you over in the next chat. And until then, thank you again so much, Tommi. Really appreciate you and everything else you've done for me.
Thank you.